Hello everyone. So it's been a really long time since I made a video because, honestly, things just got so busy and it was kind of hard to make a bunch of different forms of media, like having a podcast and having a blog and then trying to make videos. And plus, I don't really like the way that I look when I talk. So that was kind of like a hard thing to get over. But I do think it's time that I started making these again. So I am currently in my room, which is really funny too because this is like a different, I can't even like look at the right things. It's like sideways. It's really funny that I'm in a whole new setting since we actually did this because sometimes I would make them in the office and then sometimes I would make them like in my room at the old place that I used to live, but we don't live there anymore. So now I have this new surrounding here and trying to figure out like where to film everything has kind of been a challenge, but I am working with it. So yeah, I've had a lot of different topics that I've talked about on the blog since then, and I just never made a video to go along with it. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna try to do that again because I do understand, like I said, there's a lot of people who like different things. Some people like to watch a video and, see somebody talking and kind of engage with it that way. Sometimes people want to listen to a podcast, like I listen to podcasts when I'm driving or when I'm cleaning or whatever. And then some people actually like to sit and read stuff to see like actual words and we have that too. So I'm trying to set it up to where it's going to be each month is a different topic, which, if you kind of like take a look at all of them, it might get a little bit repetitive, but I do try to keep some different points and different ways of presenting the information different no matter what form of media you're looking at. So that it's not just like the same thing where I'm like, I don't know, reading the blog post in a video and then you're like, well, I already heard this. So yeah, so that's kind of an update on where things have been since then. If you've been following things along on other platforms, you kind of have an idea of what's changed since then. But if you're just watching videos, there's a lot that has changed since the last video. Me and my partner, now husband, have gotten married. We moved to a completely different city and, have our own place together again. And it's really been a lot. So yeah, everything's been good though. It's all been good change, and the things that are coming up that have been changing or going to change or however you want to say it are all good too. So that's all really cool. So now that things have kind of settled a little bit, I am going to be doing videos again once a month, hopefully. Fingers crossed. So this month, the topic of the blog that is not out yet as I'm recording this, but it will be by the time this is out, and the title of the podcast that we've been working on together is about meeting people where they are or are not. Meaning when you're like relating to somebody, how you relate to them, how that kind of like relates to what you say and your kind of mental thoughts and beliefs and stuff relating around that topic, and how to kind of like, what's the word? Like not, I guess like constructively move on from there so that you don't get stuck in like a negative thought pattern or thought cycle in your relating to that person. Okay, so let me explain. So I have my notes here, kind of getting back into the swing of things, so do kind of forgive me for not being super professional, but that's how I keep track of things, and until I get more in the swing of things, this is how it's going to be. So I do have a quote by Billy Joel that I think really relates to this. So it states, "As human beings, we need to know that we are not alone, that we are not crazy or completely out of our minds, that there are other people out there who feel as we do, live as we do, love as we do, who are like us." And I feel like this really relates to us because in being a partner or a loved one of someone with addiction, it can kind of feel like you are alone and you don't really have a whole lot of support because, if you, I don't know, if you write a blog or you are interested in something like cooking, you can go on Google and type in cooking and you get like a million, thousand, hundred, blah, 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 articles and blogs and videos and blah, blah, blah about cooking and learning how to cook and how to do that, and you can get like a wealth of information. But when you have this, now that I've kind of been looking into this whole community and subgroup or whatever for as long as I have, I'm starting to now find things. But back when I was in the thick of it, when I really could have used it, I didn't really find a lot of it. I didn't really find a lot of people who share their story. I didn't really find a lot of social media accounts. I didn't find a lot of blogs. I didn't find a lot of anything. And the stuff that I did find, it was like maybe one thing by somebody and that was it. And so it was just like very choppy and like bits and pieces of little things, but never like a whole like in-depth thing that like actually helped me to like see their story and see like where they were and how they got there and this and that and their inner thoughts or whatever. And so that's why I kind of set out to do this, because I wanted to relate to other people and show them like, hey, I get it. Because of course there is Nar-Anon, and I started Nar-Anon in, I don't even know, October of 2019. And when I got there, I was like, oh my God, it's really cool. There's a lot of people. But even there, I don't know if it was just my group or if it was just the timing of it or whatever. Because even, the group would talk about these other members who were like there for a long time, but they, go on vacation, they go out of town or whatever. So they kind of have seasons that they're there. But even them, like most of the members were all like older, and it was all like their kids. So there wasn't anybody that was my age where it was like their partner. And so that kind of made, like, I was happy to have that community. And, like, I know that they could relate to me on, like, a lot of different things. And I could relate to them because there's a lot of things that are similar. But it would have been nice to have somebody who was, like, in my shoes, who actually did have a partner. And it wasn't their, like, blood relative or their child or whatever. Because I feel like that kind of has some, like, not necessarily, like, negative connotations. But, like, when it's a child, you kind of have, like, this more, like, parental bond and this or whatever. And for having a partner, I feel like most people can think like, oh, just like break up with them, but it's not that easy. So it would have been nice to have somebody who could kind of like relate to me on that, and like I didn't feel so alone with that. So again, that's why I tried to do this, so that I can give out my information and my knowledge and my experiences, like, hey, I've been through it, I understand where you're coming from. And I know that not everybody's going to have the exact same thing, but the more we share and the more we get out there, the more people will relate to it, and maybe it'll help end the whole stigma around it too, because not a lot of people like to talk about it with anyone, because it's like, oh, like, oh, wow, your loved one is an addict, they do drugs, like, wow, how terrible. And so then it kind of just like, it creates this whole thing where you got to deal with so many different aspects of it, and like getting a support system is super hard, because then like, it kind of takes a while for your family to understand the situation, or your friends, or, whoever it is that you're talking to about these things. So that's why I wanted to do that. And so I really think that quote applies, because we all just want to relate to someone. We all just want to have that community feeling of people who get it, and people who like want to support you and want to help you and want to share with you, so that you know that you're not alone. And yeah, so I'm sorry, you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm trying really hard to like make this professional. It was really hard. So so another thing is that there are things to remember in doing that, because I have seen a lot of like, I don't know, I guess like accounts, or not even just accounts. I mean, like when I say account, I mean like individual like people. So like on Facebook or on any other like social media platform or forum or whatever, like there'll be these groups where, sorry, I gotta adjust myself. There will be these groups where, they're trying to make the sense of community and like, oh, hey, we're all here, we all understand each other and everything. But then, somebody will post something, and then somebody else will try to relate with them, but then they just end up like relating on just the negative stuff. So then, like, oh, my partner doesn't care about me, he just cares about drugs more than me, and I'll never, be as important as that, and blah blah blah. And then somebody will come in and be like, yeah, my husband did the same thing, and he ended up leaving, and I'm so much better off without him. And it's like, okay, in a situation like that, it is really cool that there's a place for these two people to meet, and it is cool that they can relate to each other, although it's not the best subject material. It's kind of depressing, but they can relate to each other, and that's great. But then that's all that happens. So they meet, and then it's just like, my partner essentially sucks. My partner essentially sucks too. And we broke up, or we're not talking. And yeah, our lives just suck together. And then what? So then it's like, I see that like everywhere. And like, I don't really like that. Only because I have pretty much been a born and raised negative thinker. And that's what kind of kept me in this whole mess to begin with, was that I was just so negative. I never thought things would get any better. I never thought that he would enter recovery and stay there. I never thought that our lives would improve. I always thought that we were just going to be basically living in one of the bedrooms in his parents' house, and then that was it. And maybe we would save some money and, I don't know, be able to do fun things every couple years. Like there was never any like growth or any like thoughts that like things would get really better. Like, oh wow, you know, like owning our own place or getting married or anything like that. Like, no way. But if I kept thinking like that, I wouldn't be where I am right now because I would have never thought that it was possible. You know what I mean? Like, I had to change eventually, and it took me years to figure that out. But once I figured it out, then everything started changing because I wasn't thinking like that. When you get stuck in these negative cycles of thinking where you're just like, wow, everything sucks, you can either have a moment where you are there for a little bit, you realize, okay, I let it out and I'm going to move forward, or you can stay there. And when you stay there, your brain all of a sudden gets all these other thoughts like, oh yeah, this sucks, that sucks, that sucks. And it'll just keep doing that over and over and over. And it'll just pull all these, like, I completely forgot about that, but that sucks too. And it'll just keep doing that. And it'll just make this cycle. And the longer you do that, the harder and harder it is for you to snap out of it because you have all this layering of negative things and you're in a bad mood. And then this person makes you angry. And then this situation comes up. And wow, I'm going to look at that negatively too. And then it just all compounds on each other. And so then you meet somebody that you can relate to. And all you have is just this negative story that you have about your life, like, well, yeah, I can relate to you, but here's all this negative stuff and nothing ever got better. Wow. And especially if you're someone who's new to this, like, okay, I'm going to go here because I'm going to try to find some help. And all you get are just negative things. And you're like, wow, like, what is that really all it is? Is that all it's going to do? Is just like, be like, okay, that's all I have to look forward to for the next however many decades. Like, I don't want to do this. And especially if there's someone like me who like knew that they wanted to stay in the relationship because they had hope. If all you have is that, then you're like, well, am I making the wrong decision? So I just want, sorry, technical difficulties. But yeah, so if you are in that situation and you actually, you know, you want to stay in the relationship and you want to see where it goes, but you just keep having that kind of pushback, you know, you wonder if you're going in the right direction, even if you feel inside that that's what you want to be doing. If you have these outside situations telling you differently, then you're like, okay, what do I do? And you start to doubt yourself, and that can be an issue too. So that's my goal of trying to do this, is just to show that there are like different situations that, you know, can apply to you or cannot apply to you. And I realized that I forgot to plug in my microphone. I'm sorry. This is like not professional at all, but that's okay. Nothing is perfect. Let's not be perfectionists. But yeah, so when you just have that kind of like here, there, everywhere you go is just either nothing or negative, and you're like, okay, now what? So that's what my goal is. Like, just because I stayed with my partner and we got married and whatever, doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. However, I do want to give all the information that I got, that I found different places, I learned myself, I synthesized and whatnot, and then give it out to you so that you can use that and do with it what you will. You know, apply it to different things, whatever. You build yourself up so that you feel confident no matter what decision you're making, and then you'll know because you have that inner knowing of that. So yes, that's my explanation of that. So I have another quote. This is what I'm talking about in terms of negativity and getting stuck there, okay? So this is by somebody named Lorenzo Scapoli. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I'm sorry. I am somewhat Italian according to my ancestry test, but I don't know how to pronounce everything. So he says, when you are offended or annoyed by others, do not allow your thoughts to dwell on them or on anything relating to them. For example, don't think that they ought not to have treated you so, or whatever. He goes on, but I'm cutting it down. All this is fuel and kindling of wrath, anger, and hatred. So that's going to apply to us, obviously, because we have a lot of situations where our partners do something, whatever it is. They come home late, they say something to us that we take offensively. They, you know, go off and don't talk to us for however long because they're just so busy doing drugs. You know, like just, or even just little things that have nothing to do with the drug use that we just take out of context and we just use to kind of like make ourselves feel more angry. Like, you know what, I'm justified in thinking like this because you forgot to take the trash out. Like, our whole lives are just falling apart because you're doing drugs. It's the whole idea that you shouldn't dwell on them, because if you dwell on them and you just hold them close to you and that's all you think about, you're just gonna keep spewing that out. Like you're gonna have the wrath and the anger and the hatred and everything, and you're just gonna end up spitting that back out to not only your partner, but everybody, all of your loved ones. It's gonna come out when you're interacting with your kids or with your coworkers or anything. It's just gonna make you like this bitter, uptight person. And I would know because I was one. And to an extent, I still am a little uptight. Not so bitter though, but so it's just the point that like the more you hold on to your past and all the resentments and the anger and everything, the more that it's just going to keep you stuck. And then that's all you have to say about things. Anger. Yes, he upset me. Oh, he did this. Oh, he did that. Now, I'm not saying that you can't share that at all. Like, oh, you should only share the happy stuff. Oh, yes, I am doing better. I am so happy that he did drugs. And every time I think about him doing drugs, it makes me happy. No, that's stupid. That's not what I mean either, because the term that goes around is toxic positivity, where you get just like only good stuff, only good vibes here. No, I mean like not to that extent to where you can't talk about anything. Like, okay, that's fine. I do that too sometimes, where I bring up, like old memories or whatever, but I don't just say like, yes, one time we showed up to take him to the gym because I was trying to force him to the gym because I thought that would help. And he showed up and he was, drugged out of his mind. And, he got in my car, was talking a bunch of nonsense. Me and my daughter started crying. And then he left and didn't sleep for 3 days. Okay, what? What about it? Like, that I've already given a lot of context and stuff. But even still, like, I can show you that I know what I'm talking about because I experienced it. But, like, what about it? What did I learn? Well, for one, I learned to not force him to do things because it's not going to help at all. What good would it, even if I could have forced him to go to the gym, he was completely out of his mind. Like, that wouldn't have done anything. So don't force him to do things. Maybe don't bring along our daughter when I go to get him, if I ever even did that, which I shouldn't have done, because after a while I realized, like, I shouldn't even be going over there. He doesn't want to see me right now. So, like, why am I going to go over there and bug him and be like, hey, oh, you're not paying attention to me, now I'm mad because you're ignoring me. Like, he didn't say that he wanted me over there. So it's just like that whole, like, I learned to step back from it, to let him do his own thing, which I did because I realized that wasn't doing anything. I stepped back and let him do his own thing. And eventually it worked out, stay in my own lane. I would keep the line open, like the communication line open, if he wanted to reach out and he wanted to, I don't know, talk to me about anything, whatever, he needed help and he actually wanted to get better, okay. But I had, I learned boundaries of like what to talk to him about, what, oh, don't talk to me if you just want money or whatever, things like that. So I want to show you, hey, here's a, like, with my blogs, here's a topic, I might give you an example of like what I went through, but what's the gist of it? Like, what is the outcome? What did we learn? How are we being better people? How are we growing as a person? How are we bettering our lives? That's the important part. So that's what I want to like harp on, is the good parts. Like, okay, of course we went through this negative stuff, but let's focus on how we became better, how we learned from it, and how we're moving forward. That's what I like. Okay, don't just keep repeating negative things and reinforcing the stereotypes that we are trying to overcome so that we actually do feel comfortable to talk about these things with more people, not just people who relate to us exactly. So yeah, they're humans. They, my partner is human. He has problems. He worked through those problems. Okay, he's not a terrible person forevermore. He wasn't a terrible person then. I didn't hate him or anything. I thought I did a few times, but that was only because I had no idea how to make sense of everything. But that's the idea, right? Let's relate to people, but not like that. Not where it's only negative and we just keep going back. My negative story is worse than yours, So yeah, another note. When entering recovery, it's good to be aware of what you need to let go of and what could be bothering you and that could hold you back. So that is good. Take an inventory, So like, okay, if you do have these problems that are bothering you and you do have, like, oh, this event that happened in the past, or all of these events in the past, I don't even remember, but I just have a lot of anger that I'm holding on to. That's good, because then you can bring it up to your therapist if you have one, which I do. But it's good to be aware of that so that what you need to work through and what you need to change. Okay, don't just shove it away and be like, oh, I'm just going to ignore that, but it's going to come out in all these different situations because I forgot about it. It's good to be aware of that. Or qualities about yourself, like me. Like, I tend to be a little bit uptight and not as spontaneous as I would like to be. I tend to be a control freak. I tend to like only look at the negatives, which, you know, I don't do it as much as I used to, but I still do it on occasion. It's good to be aware of those things so that you know how to control or how to be aware of the way that you're speaking about things or to other people. You know, if you have a tendency to be a control freak, you know, just like don't talk about the things that like, well, if you would have just did this or if you would have just did that, like, okay, I know I have issues with control. Let's figure out how to turn that positive or how to, you know, use that for good in life. You know, like I'm really good at, you know, creating schedules and stuff and getting people to follow. I'm just going to create a schedule for myself and get myself to follow them. Or things like that. Or, you know, like I have this issue way back when of my partner not listening to me. Okay, well, we can't force other people to listen to us, but we can see like, okay, I just really wanted to be heard. But also, was it something that was worth sharing or was it just me being angry at nothing? And then if it's not just something or me just being angry at nothing, what was I trying to share? And how can I hear myself and validate myself instead of looking for that in other people? Something like that, you know, just food for thought on that. So for me, I used to hold on to the past, negative thoughts, all that good stuff. But eventually realized that I couldn't. It just kept bringing up more negatives and creating another cycle of hindering my progress. So that's essentially what I was talking about before, where, you know, I would do that too. It wasn't even just in relating to other people. It was just like as a whole, even not even out loud, just in my head, you know, just thinking about negative things all the time. And that's just what would be my constant chatter in my mind, was just negative things all the time. So then relating to people, talking to people that had no idea what I was like going through or anything. It was just like always negative, always negative, always negative, always negative. And that just brought more negative stuff to me. Nobody likes that. So it's good to just be aware of the way that you're thinking, be aware of how you're talking to other people, be aware of what you're spreading negatives, spreading positives, spreading even just neutral is better than negative. So if you find that like the disconnect between negative and positive is too much, at least go neutral. Like, my life sucks and it's terrible and I don't know how I'm going to get out. You can't just be like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to think the opposite. Wow, my life is great. Like, it doesn't, like, it's not typically, at least for me, I never found it to be that easy. So at least go neutral. My life sucks. I hate everything. I'm never going to change anything. It's going to be too much work. I'm just going to keep living in my in-laws, well, not even in-laws at that time, but his parents' house in one room for the rest of my life. Instead of here, go to the next step, neutral. I am so grateful to have a roof over my head. I have a roof over my head. I'm not living with strangers. I am living with people who love me. I have food. I have, you know, security. I may not know what's happening with him, but I'm safe. I'm healthy. I'm hoping for the best. Everything, really, all my basic needs, financials and stuff are taken care of. Do I wish I had more? Sure. But I'm doing pretty good right now. I have the ability to look towards better things. You know, it doesn't have to be like, oh, everything's amazing and I don't have any cares in the world. Even if there's just a little way for you to kind of like bridge the gap, that's a good way to start getting in that direction. And then soon that'll make you feel good. It'll get you out of that dark space and you can move on to positives, and then it'll be it'll be easier. And then that'll be your dominant thinking then. And so it just kind of like, that's just how it worked for me, you know, just like whatever. And yes, I did have a therapist at this time too, but like, you know, you have a therapist and you go to Nar-Anon meetings and stuff, and like everybody can give you outside things, you know, external things. Oh, you know, I got this cool tip from my therapist, or my therapist listened to me and we had a great talk, or I went to Nar-Anon and somebody told me a story and it was really cool, or whatever. But like, people can keep handing you things and you can keep finding things. You can find a cool book, you can find this or whatever. But if you don't actually do anything with it, then it kind of just stops right there. Like, okay, now I just have this big stack of things that help me, but like I haven't actually synthesized them yet. And that's something that you have to do on your own. You know, like you can learn all the tips in the world on how to improve your life, but if you don't actually implement them, then you don't really go anywhere. And it all starts in your mind. Because I used to do that too. I would get a bunch of books and I would get a bunch of, I'd watch a bunch of podcasts, or listen to a bunch of podcasts, and I'd watch a bunch of YouTube videos and stuff, and I would think, wow, all this stuff is really cool, and then I would just immediately think, like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do that. You have to actually implement it into your life, inside, in your mind, within you, for it to actually work. So, yeah, that's why you got to keep it positive, because if not, you're just going to keep bombarding yourself with negative stuff. So, the whole point of this video, after we got all through that stuff, is 3 things to remember when relating to others. And this relates to others in our community, people who know about addiction, people who have an addict partner, people like us, people who, whatever, they're just involved in the community. But it also works for other people in our lives as well. Anybody that you meet, anybody that you might be trying to empathize with, your best friend's going through something. Wow, I also went through something, whatever. So the first thing is, and these are all just my things that I came up with that I feel like apply and things that I can relate to. Like, yes, I did these things. I stand by them. I didn't get them from some book or whatever, because that's the whole point of this, is that this is my stuff that I'm giving you that I actually used. That's like, I know they work because I did them, and a lot of stuff doesn't work for me, I feel like. So this worked for me. This is what I'm giving you, okay? Understand the situation. Sometimes others just want you to be there, not fix the problem. Just be a listening and understanding ear so they don't feel totally alone, okay? I actually go through this with my partner a lot, because in telling, my frustrations about things, which 99% of the time they are not that important, he sometimes thinks that he has to fix the problem. But sometimes I just want to be listened to, not even validated. Like, just listen to me. I'm going to figure it out eventually, but just listen to me right now. Okay? Just like, I'm just going to tell you these things about me that have been happening with me. Just listen. And that goes for a lot of people, Sometimes people don't want you to solve their problem. Sometimes they actually want to solve the problem, but just in the moment, they just want somebody to listen to them. I got all these thoughts in my head. I just need somebody to listen so I don't feel crazy. Can you just listen? Okay? So that's the first thing. First thing relating to others. Understand the situation. Do they want you to listen? Do they want you to give your experience? Do they want you to do this? Whatever, blah, 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 blah. Do they want a hug? So yeah, that's the first thing. Second thing, share if applicable, but don't take over the conversation. Show how you moved forward or what you learned if you think it will help. So that's another thing. So share if you want to. You don't have to. So if you're sharing with somebody else, if they give you like, hey, this is my problem. But the first thing, understand the situation. You can share if you want to, because some people think that if you're trying to relate to people, it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to show you this. I understand because I have this. Here's my situation. But not everybody wants that. So like, if they don't, that's why you got to understand it first. Share if applicable. Because you don't want to domineer the conversation either. Like, oh, wow, that really sucks. But wait till you hear what happened to me. And then you just go off on a tangent about this thing that happened to you. And then you're like, well, I asked you for help first. So that, I think, it kind of relates to the first one, but I think that was kind of worthy of putting in its own thing, because we do think sharing that you, in an R&On meeting, for example, I'll just use that because that's what I used to go to. If somebody says a story okay, we're going to do this reading and I'm going to share on it. And then somebody else thinks, I have to share instead, because it gets quiet and nobody's saying anything, even though everybody's just understanding, they listen to them. Well, I got to share on something. You can share if you think that it's going to help, but don't just share for the sake of sharing. Don't just share your experience with somebody just because you think they want to hear it or whatever. You have to understand what they want and share if applicable. Okay? Kind of repeated myself a little bit, but driving it home. Number 3, take care of yourself so you don't get off track of your own progress. Self-care and inventory to see, my writing is really bad. I'm not even looking at the camera. To see if you need to take a step back. So when relating to others, listen, share if they want that, but also take care of yourself. Being in a relationship with somebody with addiction has pointed out that I like to take care of people. Do you need this? Do you need this? Do you need this? Can I do this for you? Can I do this for you? And then soon I'm like, oh my God, when was the last time I did something for myself? And it's not the fault of the person that I'm trying to take care of. They didn't ask for it. Even if they did, I don't have to give my whole being, So it's just important when you're relating to somebody, don't just immediately try to solve their problem and oh, well, here's my thing that I did. Well, let me do this for you. Let me do that for you. And, then you just make it into your problem instead of actually trying to figure out what they wanted. And then you just deplete yourself. Even if all you did was share, even if that was like the max thing you did, or even if all you did was listen, you have to make sure that you take an inventory of yourself, because let's just say you listen to somebody's story and you think about it. You think about it like all day. And it'll kind of pop into your head like, oh, well, this, or oh, well, that. And then you might start getting into your cycles of relating to your past problems and like, wow, I remember what that was like, and oh, that was so terrible. And then here comes the negative cycle about negative things. Oh, negative memories, negative experiences, negative things that relate to it. Even if you didn't tell the other person, it's still there in your mind. You have to be careful about that. I'll share another story. So, my husband's brother actually has like addiction issues too. And so there'll be some situations that's not even related to me. It's not related to me. It's not related to my husband. Like, he's doing fine. We're good or whatever. And then I'll hear a story like back when his brother was like going through, the thick of it. And then I would start like putting myself in that situation and remembering things of like, oh, wow, I remember when my husband went through this. And then I would just get all like worked up about it. And like, it wasn't even like a thing, but I made it into a thing that I would stress out about. And like, it's something like that, where you just get wrapped up in it and you're like, oh my God, instead of appreciating like, hey, my husband, he's doing good. Cool. Let's just keep it there. He's fine. His brother's fine. I have nothing to do with him. He didn't ask me for anything. He's fine. I need to stop being so dramatic and getting all wrapped up in that. I'm just going to focus on this. We're doing fine. Okay, we're good. That's why an inventory is good, to make sure that you're still doing good. You're still practicing your self-care. Take a step back, distance yourself from it a little bit. If you find that it is a little bit too much for you, that's okay. You don't have to be everybody's shoulder to cry on, and you don't have to be this perfect, strong person who can handle anybody's stories, and like, to be gentle with yourself. Don't think that you have to be able to hear these things. Like, I should be able to listen to this and deal with this. What's wrong with me? Why can't I be stronger or whatever? Like, that's not, like, just be gentle with yourself. You are your greatest support system and your greatest friend, as cliche and stupid as that sounds. It's true. So if you find that you need to step back from something and, the certain situation brings up stuff that, you don't want to remember or you don't want to deal with or whatever, it's fine. Just practice your self-care. Just chill out. Just take a second, take a little bit to just remind yourself of where you are and the good things, or just remind yourself of how strong you are and how good you are. Good to go. We don't have to get all sucked into that thing again. Okay? So, those are my 3 things. Probably could have made that list a little bit better. Probably could have not talked so much or whatever. However, I don't know. That's just where this video went. So hopefully, like I said a million times, I will figure out how to make this a little bit more streamlined in the future. But after not making a video for, I don't even know, 8 months, who knows? I don't even know. I haven't even been keeping track. This is a pretty good one. So let me know if you learned anything. Please subscribe if you feel inclined to do so. Share it, comment, I don't know, whatever you find works best for you. I don't know, save it for a rainy day. Let me know what you think. This video can be found on YouTube and also on my site directly under the videos tab. And yeah, I hope it was of help to you. And it always helps me too to talk about these things and kind of go over things again in my mind. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks.